spirit is rising, she's rising, she's rising. The spirit is rising, it's rising, it's rising. The spirit is rising, they're rising, they're rising. The spirit is rising.
Hi, Risa. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Amy. Welcome home to your witch prescription for this week. This another week surviving late stage capital. This is how we're gonna fucking get each other through. I think your first prescription is to just fucking celebrate our month-long community act of reparations is a glorious success, and it just feels so deeply good to have done that with all of you.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody who participated. If we announced on Instagram the total, but maybe you don't have Instagram, and if you don't, that's awesome. I support that.
Yeah.
So I will tell you now, the total that we raised was $10,230, and over 4,000 of that went directly to the Native Women's Shelter of Montreal. It's over $10,000, y'all. That's way beyond what my goal was, and I'm like really emotional and grateful. I want to do one shout out. Our largest donor 2 years in a row has been Brienne Iverson. I did ask if I could say her name. Molten Hot Cosmic Witch. And the reason that this fundraiser is so important to her is because of the Missing Witches Project. And she told us that she was like ready to give up point final and just whatever that might mean. And somehow she got her hands on a copy of our book. And according to her, it saved her life. According to her, it was a life preserver when she felt like she was drowning. And
Same.
Right?
Yeah.
Relatable
Content, love. Us too.
Yeah, I'm still a little bit sick, so if you hear me coughing something up, don't worry. It's the end. It's the last of my illness trying to get out of my body. Sorry, everybody. But I just really want to thank Bree, because she went out and like involved her family and did like her own thing and made a huge and amazing contribution. We also got an email from someone who was like, I've been really inspired and I've been thinking about doing something myself, but like I don't want to copy your idea. And I was like, please steal this format. Like, we did not send us a screenshot. We didn't invent fundraising. And most importantly, like, we want to see what you do. Like, if you're thinking to yourself, you're listening and you're like, I didn't have $10 last month to get in on this. Maybe next year you'll start your own.
Yeah.
Also, maybe next year you'll do your own fundraiser and raise like $1,000, like.
Also relatable to not have $10.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, please feel no, please remove any shame of that and know that everyone in the circle of this act of reparations has at some point been there, like this flow of this system of inequity that happens around money. Like, it has crushed us, and we have sometimes been in an opportunity to call it forth to support each other. So if we also got emails from people who were like, I'm able to donate for the first time, here's a $10 donation to the Native Women's Shelter, that made me weep. Like, it has been for me in times in my life, despite, a lot of systemic privilege that I have benefited from. It has definitely been for me at times in my life where I could not fucking afford rent, and I cried at the situation in the world and being unable to donate. So just know that that's part of the spirit of a community act of reparations. It's like, there's a loving balance in there. Okay.
Yeah. And if you can't contribute money, just like go out and be rad.
Just be rad. You're so rad. You're so rad.
I'm a huge believer in this, like, the rippling effect of literally like smiling at people. You like, it feels like the pressure and the heat and everybody's like honking their horns and being rude to each other, and You know, so if you can go out with like, and it sounds maybe silly, but like go out into the world with like hope and love in your heart and like smile at somebody, that to me is like a beautiful act of community service. It doesn't have to be money. It doesn't even really have to be time. It can just be like a sense of joy that pours out of you that
Yes.
leaks onto other people in the street and changes their day or it changes their life.
Yes, it can be joy. It can be joy fueled truth telling and like taking of no shit also. Sometimes it can be your fucking rage too, that's a magic. You see somebody acting like a racist piece of shit on the bus and you can be that. If you are in a white body, you can be that white body that's like, no, stop it. Like that's a magic too. It doesn't always have to be fucking love and light. With witches, sometimes we pull on darker things too to get us through the day.
Yeah.
And that brings me to my first piece of the missing witch prescription.
Off you go.
I didn't plan that segue, but it is something I've been thinking about. I guess in part, so the two pieces that go into that for me this week, and there's probably 1,000 strange synchronicities, but one, it's, a million degrees, and our lake is really cold still. So I am back to being my like true water witch, diving deep in the dark, cold lake. Like that is truly me at my core. When we talk about what did you come here to do? I am here to dive deep into dark, cold lakes. I also went to like a terrible fucking yoga class, like the worst, the worst yoga class that ended up being like an exercise in me channeling my rage. And there was so much well-intentioned love and light, and my inner anger was just radiating around me in a rage ball, I think. And I was thinking, it's like, it's okay that I don't think that this is all okay. Like, it's not okay to not warn people that you're going to photograph them and video them to put on your website at the start of a class. It's okay to be angry that they're burning like very strong smelling, heavy smoke that's also Palo Santo, which, there's issues around extraction and spiritual appropriation, and heavy on a hot day, really strong smelling. So I had a terrible headache. And then there was someone chanting for like an hour and a half too loud on a mic with like loud drone sounds. And I was just thinking about how like my body is not wired to hear that sound. Like I just had a terrible migraine from like 3 seconds into this fucking yoga class. So there was some rage in me this week, and also just rage at the world, rage at the iniquity of the world. The crackdowns in Atlanta on Cop City, the charges that are being brought against protesters as the city plans to spend like $64 million to build a militarized training center for police. I mean, just everything. Like my rage was bubbling and boiling, and then I was diving down into the dark waters, So the song that was on repeat and that May has added to her May playlist, she's now got a couple non-kid songs. It's by the Secret Sisters. I only discovered it when Missing Witches did our first like Spotify Missing Witches collective playlist, which we will have to do more of. I think that one is tricky because some people by accident added whole albums to the playlist. So if you don't like that particular sound, there's a lot of it and it kind of drowns it out. So we'll have to do a new version of it. But that is how I discovered this song, Water Witch. And it is so fucking fun to swoon around the house or scream in the car. And it also speaks to this idea, like, yeah, we're not all love and light. Some of what this idea of playing with or owning witch is also about the sorrow and the ugly and the dark and the truth telling, like in the song, she says, afraid of the strong magnetism of the pain that leaves permanent, unafraid of the strong magnetism of the pain that leaves permanent marks, I'm not afraid of that. That's part of what being a witch of the water is, you know, and a witch of the fire and a witch of the earth and the wind, you know, we're called to that. We're called to the truth in the pain places, you know. People come to our circle for a lot of reasons, and some of them involve real trauma and childhood trauma. And they don't want, you know, it's like Sophie Strand says, you know, it wasn't going to be love and light that healed her from her childhood trauma and from the sickness inside her gut and the chronic illness in her. It wasn't going to be just erasing and sterilizing and bleaching it all away, you know. It's composting. It's like, what more do we add? How much deeper do we go? Where in the dark and in the earth can we make rich soil of our lives? And anyway, all of that goes through my mind while I scream that I am the witch of the water. And there's a fun harmony in it. I come like a thief in the night, bewitched by invisible forces to lead you away from the light. It's very fun. So that's your prescription. Play that song loud, swoon around, wear dark clothes, and then dive deep in whatever waters you can, whether they're dream waters, emotional waters, shower waters, lake waters.
Yeah, metaphorical or literal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just got out of the shower before a recent I sat down to record, and it's like it was one of those like literally and metaphorically washing off the whole like few days, the heat and the dirt, and just letting it run off me and down the drain. It's obviously like a symbolic practice that witches have been doing for a very, very, very long time. You know, lavtets, head washing, and the floor washing. So as we enter Pride Month, that's kind of my prescription too. I want you to go deep into yourself, because the number one thing that I got called in high school was freak. I got called freak all the time. Freak. And so it's definitely one of the first words that I reclaimed for my own humanity. I'm a freak, you know? I'm a freak. I'm not normal. Normal is super boring. And all of y'all in your beige need to take a deep look. So that's what I want everybody to do. I want you to look and think about what makes you a fucking freak. What makes you a freak? Are you, what ways are you different? What are the things about you that are quote unquote not normal? And I want you to think about them in the ways that they've caused you pain. And then I want you to think about them in the ways that they've brought you joy. Because again, you know, we witches, we live on both sides of the coin at all times. We have this complete non-binary existence that isn't just this or that. It's everything, and it's mixed together to make new colors and form new things. But like, sit down with it. Like, sit down with your inner freak. Ask yourself, like, what makes you the wonderful freakazoid that you are? You know, I got an email from a friend who is like being harassed by Proud Boys, basically. And I told him, you know, I'm in my mind, I'm creating this circle of protection around you and all the freakazoids who literally make life on this earth worth living. You know, if you look to arts, you'll find freaks. And I don't just mean like, you know, LGBTQIA plus, you know, although obviously that's a huge part of, like, Lee Bowery comes to mind of just like the freakiest, queeriest, most exciting. I remember the first time I saw Lee Bowery and it was like the whole world cracked open for me, you know. What makes you different? And so what makes you special? And I brought someone who can relate to you for that. Janelle Monáe came out as non-binary. They had already claimed pansexuality. So in terms of all that freakiness, they're freaky. But I don't know if you remember when Janelle Monáe first came on the scene, it was all about a tuxedo. You know, it was all about, like, it was feminine, but there was this like hard masculinity about it. And that's just expanded. I don't know if you all have seen the video for Pink with the vagina pants. They're like, all of the dancers are wearing these like amazing like labia pants that are like vagina lips. Like you look at, there's no mistaking it. You know? But the song that I brought from Janelle Monáe is a duet that she did with Erykah Badu called Queen, so known as Queen. And it's a song about asking, like, am I a freak for getting down? Am I a freak for this? Am I a freak for that? And their answer is like, yeah, I'm a freak for all of these things. And I want to read the conclusion that Janelle Monáe comes up with. Well, I'm going to keep leading like a young Harriet Tubman. You can take my wings, but I'm still going to fly. And even when you edit me, the booty don't lie. Yeah, I'm going to keep singing. I'm going to keep writing songs. I'm tired of Marvin asking me what's going on. And just as an aside here, What's Going On was like a political song written by Marvin Gaye that's like a plea of like, what is going on? Like this racism, this violence, like what is going on? So that's an aside.
And don't I remember Janelle Monáe saying early on in interviews that they channel, like they feel Marvin Gaye in them, that they feel different Black voices through them, they hear their voices, that it comes through in their music. I'll see if I can find the interview, but I do remember them being really explicit about parts of their musical creation feeling like an act of possession.
Yeah, I hadn't read that interview, but I'm excited to now. March through the streets because I'm willing and I'm able. Categorize me, I defy every label. And while you're selling dope, we're going to keep selling hope. We rising up now. You got to deal. You got to cope. Will you be electric sheep? Electric ladies, will you sleep or will you preach? And so again, that is the prescription for me this week. Think about what makes you a fucking freak and then preach it. Reach it. If you're in a safe place, tell the world. If you're not in a safe place, write yourself a love poem about the freakiest bits of you and the strangest bits of you and the weirdest bits of you, because that's what makes you exciting to me. That's what makes you interesting to me. That's what makes you taking a hold of your life. I've known so many people who wanted to be so fucking normal, and now they're adults and they're trapped in these lives that they didn't choose because they let society choose for them what the right path was, the normal path, the quote unquote, I'm using mega scare quotes, I'm waving my fingers around in the air right now, the right and normal way of doing things, and they're fucking miserable. And they're fucking miserable. So I want you to bust out of that, like, what is normal, what is correct, because it might not be normal or correct for you. It might be what your parents wanted from you. It might be what society wanted from you. But if it's not right for you, it's going to hurt. And it's going to keep hurting. And someday you're going to wake up and realize you're fucking trapped in a life that you didn't want. And I don't want that for you, because I've been a freakazoid my whole life and it has never steered me wrong. It has never steered me wrong. I've gotten in trouble. I've taken hits. I've lost friends who couldn't deal. But I've never regretted it. Never once. So take it from me, lifelong freakazoid. Will you sleep or will you preach?
Yeah. And if the word preach is a trigger for you, like religious trauma is real and painful. And sometimes sometimes the word can be enough. Like we get educated by our coven so much, but we've heard this about the word play, like it's sometimes if you had childhood trauma, the word play can be really fucking unwelcome. Sometimes if you have religious trauma, even if we're playing, even if we're fucking with the word, even if we're dismantling the word, we're reclaiming it, we're taking it for ourselves, words from that experience can shove you right out of your magic, right? Like, so the word that was suggested to us by coven members who brought this to us is like, instead of preach, what if we fucking howl? So if Janelle Monáe speaks to you all the way up until that word, and then you feel like dropped a little bit because that word is dismembering for you, just howl over that part. Because you're a fucking freak and you can howl if you want. You don't have to fucking preach.
Yeah, and I we are translators. It's what we do. You choose your own word, babes. Choose your own words. Michaela Harrison, the whale whisperer, maybe you remember the interview we did with her. She didn't particularly feel drawn to the word gay or queer, so she calls herself prismatic. And I'm like, fuck yeah, you're prismatic. Like, choose any word that makes you happy. It doesn't have to be the words that we tell you. That's counter to everything that we just said. Choose your own words and do your own translations, do your own translations.
Yes. Okay. So that brings me to my next prescription pieces, because we're translators and we use words. So these ones aren't songs. These are 2 books that have been really with me in the last couple of weeks. One of them you can purchase now. The other one is available for pre-order. Eliza Robertson wrote a fucking killer book called I Got a Name. It's a true crime book. Eliza is a contributor to our book coming out in September. Our book is New Moon Magic. And for that book, we asked some of our favorite astrologers who we'd met over the years on the show to give like a little piece of an insight into the character of the new moon in each astrological season. And Eliza wrote incredibly beautiful sort of doorways into understanding the way that time is felt. She's a brilliant astrologer. She's just a brilliant writer, like award-winning Canadian novelist and writer, who I finally got to meet in person last week. And she is so delicate seeming and so lovely and so precise. And then she traveled across North America hunting a fucking murderer. And she tells the story in this book. And it's just so empowering and haunting, terrifying. So I Got a Name. If you are up for a cold case in the hands of a really thoughtful, beautiful writer who you can tell on every page is a fucking witch, although she never names it. She just sees, she sees the signs in places, and she thinks about the connections and things, and she's really deliberate and thoughtful about the world of true crime and its biases, and the world of domestic violence and the way it's so deeply entrenched in bureaucracy. If you are up for that, I so highly recommend it. And I just wanted to share, so Eliza tells this story that she started to tell the story of this cold case, of the murder of Crystal Sank is the subtitle. And she finds out about this story because a neighbor leaves an envelope on her doorstep that's from like 20 years before. And it's the collected sort of writing of this woman who had been murdered up in the Yukon, that, a neighbor had known her, had worked with her, and had kept her writing. And she quotes from it throughout the book, throughout the story. We hear bits of Crystal's own voice, of Crystal's own writing. And at one point, Crystal writes, "I am the collective gathering of all my experiences. My behaviors and beliefs have evolved throughout countless ages and have currently chosen to manifest themselves in the human form present on this earth in this time. I am part of a continuum, linkages of lives, each unique unto itself, but forming a complete picture of the essence of the life it was and currently is." And how strange to be reading a book written by a woman 30 years after this woman was murdered, and for her to be writing about being part of a wave, part of a continuum. And it's so heartbreaking that this happened to this incredibly strong woman who was murdered for protecting a friend, murdered by the friend's husband. We know his name, he's still at large, fuck that guy, Ronald Bax. And to think of ourselves as part of a continuum and a wave of people rising, of picking up each other's stories and the heartbreak of that, but also the undeniability of us. I feel that in her book. So that is part of my prescription. If you are up for the sorrow of it and the unresolvedness of it, in very loving hands, read I Got a Name. And then the other one is an invitation. So Claire Macmillan wrote a novelized version of the story of Remedios Varo and Leonora Carrington. So if you've listened to our Leonora Carrington episodes, our interviews with her family members, our writing about her work, this novel is so juicy and joyful. And Claire will be on the show with us, which means Coven members, if you're a member of the Missing Witches Coven, if not, go to Missing Witches and just click join the Coven. There's memberships for as cheap as $1 a month. You'll be invited to meet with Claire, and we can pull cards together and talk about art and talk about novelizations of real witches, and dig into the history. But I wanted to read a little bit of Anatomy of a Blackbird, because this is like a class in tarot reading, this book. Like, there's pieces of how Remedios came to understand tarot told to us through Claire's like wonderful, insightful thinking about it. This piece is in the voice of a Cherugi woman who, you know, Leonora and Remedios encounter on the banks of the Seine, you know, as the Nazis are coming into France. So Nazis are already like arresting and murdering fortune tellers, astrologers in Germany. They know it's coming to France. So this woman is kind of hiding her cards, but, you know, Remedios and Leonora find them. And so she gives like a bit of insight into the cards. And it's, funny too, because Leonora has these ideas about like, oh, you can't touch the cards. You know, you must never pull the cards for yourself. You must never buy yourself cards. And this woman is like, you were told a bunch of bullshit. Like, that's that's superstition. Like, that's not real. That was your nanny trying to keep you from fucking with her shit.
Yeah.
But then she says, no power inhabits a deck of tarot cards beyond what you as the tarot reader bring to them. There's no doctrinaire meaning for any card, and no authority on high handing down pronouncements. There is only your knowledge of myth and symbol. These things you may consider through the study of classical Greek and Roman myth, physics, all forms of mysticism and occultism, even psychology. You combine this with your own life experience and bring it to the cards. And then later she says, your first lesson is this: the tarot is like life. A set of cards to be played that rely on the skill, knowledge, and intuition of the reader to view the cards dealt, understand them, and react to them to the best of her ability. Like life, there is a random element to it. And like life, there is a synchronicity to it. And like life, what matters is the truth that can be glimpsed behind what is rather small and flimsy, in this case, a card, and then what actions are taken in reaction to that truth. So juicy. So that's called Alchemy of a Blackbird. It's available for pre-order. Pre-orders help authors so much. So if you're inspired and you want a juicy summer novel, you can pre-order it now, and it comes out July 11th.
And ultimately, I think that's a good bow to tie around this, is just like reacting to the truth. Can we react to the truth of ourselves? Can we react to the truth of the society that we're living in? Can we react to the truth of our feelings? Can we react to the truth of ourselves that we've kept hidden? How do we react to the truth? Let's examine that this week. And blessed if I can
And blessed if I can be.
We love you. And thank you again for joining our fundraiser. Holy shit, y'all. We love you.
Holy shit. Awesome.
World's drifting through me, and my life is all to me. I love myself and all me. I love myself and all me. all of me. I love myself and all of me. Love myself and all of me. I love myself and all of me.
If you want to support the Missing Witches Project, find out how at missingwitches.com.